Welcome to The Actor's Choice, where the actors and actresses have a chance to talk about themselves and their careers. Join us now for the next hour as we explore the marvelous industry of acting by actors and actresses from today's exciting show business world. And now, direct from Hollywood, here's your host, Ron Brewington.
Hi everybody, I'm Ron Brewington and welcome to The Actor's Choice, brought to you by Photography is an Art, Harvey Brandman, Master Photographer, located at 1307 North San Fernando Boulevard, Burbank, California. And attorney Ron Irwin's 5150 The Book. It's the story of a young Irwin serving 13 months in South Vietnam as a Marine. And author Larry Buford's book To the Future, Time Travel, Message in a Capsule, now available in paperback for only $17.95. And State Farm agent Carla Green, who says, and like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
And like I said before, every news photo tells a story, and sometimes the story behind the news photo is just as intriguing or more intriguing than the photo itself.
All right, welcome ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back from a Thanksgiving holiday. I hope you had a great time. My guest today is a renowned photojournalism. A journalist is a difference. We'll talk about that and being a celebrity photographer and all that good stuff. And what's that one? Paparazzi? We'll talk about that too.
Paparazzis.
His work has been seen around the world for many years. I mean, this tall-looking, handsome, young, suave, debonair guy has been seen around the world. The short clip that you just saw is his standard of knowledge that he's followed for years, as he's able to document numerous, I say again, numerous news stories and events. Please welcome a longtime friend and fellow media colleague, Haywood Galbreath.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Good to have you here, my brother. Good to have you here. You've done so much for so many folks over the years. Tell us, where were you born and raised at? Because this is a surprise when I found this. I didn't know this.
I was born in a little town in western Kentucky.
Kentucky. I didn't know that. I'll be blessed.
You know, western Kentucky. What's so interesting is I've been out here for 29 years on a 2-week vacation.
Get back.
And every time I speak to somebody, I know it's coming. I'll say about 3 or 4 words, and they're like, "Where are you from?" I knew it. I knew it was coming.
Right.
I'm like, Kentucky. And I always add, if Arnold Schwarzenegger can keep that accent, I can keep my accent and keep moving on. But I was born in Mayfield, Kentucky, which is in western Kentucky. It's a small community of 10,000 people. I always tell people, 10,000 people, but it's got 9,999 until I get back over there.
Right.
And actually, I was born in the basement of a racially segregated hospital.
Yeah.
And when I was coming up, black people would talk about they had to go spend the night with family members that was in the hospital, didn't quite understand what was going on. Mm-hmm. I just knew that they were figuring out who was going to stay what night and how long. And then when I got older, what I found out was that the hospital was racially segregated. Mm-hmm. Black people were in the basement, white people were upstairs, and little black babies couldn't be born upstairs. And the reason they was figuring out who was going to go to the hospital was, like about after 9 o'clock at night, the doctors and the nurses wouldn't come downstairs. So the family members had to be down there with the family. And if something serious happened, they'd run upstairs and get a doctor or a nurse. And the other thing about that story is that you always see these beautiful pictures of families leaving the hospital with the baby and everything out the front door. When my mother brought me home, the family had to come to the kitchen, and she had to come through the kitchen out the back door by the garbage cans to put me in the car and take me home.
Wow.
So.
Wow. I wish our younger people knew these things, about these things, and understood what happened back then. You know?
Yeah, and so.
Yeah.
Coming up, but I was fortunate enough, though, that my family worked for Caucasian people, but also had Caucasian people that were good friends of theirs. Because back in a small community, it's community, you know, you have to lean on each other quite a bit. And if you're not in what they call now that 1%, then everybody is looking out for each other. So even though there were certain rules that you had to go by because it was still segregated, there was still this look out for each other. So I was fortunate enough to walk on both sides of the fence, as they say, and I remember asking to do certain things and would be told, you can't do this. And I'm like, well, why can't I do this? And boy, be quiet. And as I got older, I became to understand what it was. Then the schools were desegregated. Now, I first started out in a one-room school out in the country. And that was the most interesting thing. One-room school. Then I got to go to the big brick school in town after segregation was ended. And that started, and like I said, I had this desire to be more than what they said I could be. And as time went by, my grandfather had a stroke. My grandmother and grandfather moved to the country. My grandfather had a stroke, and I went to live with my grandmother.
Okay.
And I was watching a news program one day. She worked two. This is one of these famous stories about hard times and making it. After my grandfather had the stroke, my grandmother had to work 2 and 3 jobs to save the family farm. You've heard that before, saving the family farm.
Saving the family farm. Oh yes.
And so while I wasn't old enough to work. So she worked these jobs, so I had to take care of my grandfather. I gave up my childhood at 8 years old to go live in the country and take care of my grandfather night and day while she was working, and still had to get up and go to school. I didn't have to milk the cows, but I had to feed the hogs. We had hogs.
These are stories that you see in the movies.
Yes. I had to feed the hogs and stay with him night and day and help take care of him. And one evening while she was at work, I was watching a news program. And it came on with a segment about black men not being with their families.
Oh, yeah.
And I looked at it, and when it went off, I just kind of stared at the TV set, and I said, that's not true. That's not really true. Because there are things that black people have to do to survive, and I knew this. And the father wasn't necessarily in the house, but the father was around. And you had the old men that was sit and talk, and you go and talk to the old men that is, it's like the old bulls and the, stuff. And so they were around, and I'll go to my grave saying this. I heard the voice of God say, you see what you just saw? As the years go by, this is the medium that will be used for people to determine what they think about people. And right then and there, I decided I was going to be a photojournalist, so that I could tell the story about my people and about everybody. And I said to myself, tell it more truthfully and let the people make up their mind themselves on what's what.
That's beautiful.
And I started from there.
That's beautiful.
Didn't get an opportunity. I didn't get my first camera until I was like 19 years old.
Okay.
And started shooting and shooting and shooting. And then I moved to, then other things happened. I was denied some opportunities growing up that really hurt. And when I was like 25, I believe, I had a chance to become, there's only 2 things I wanted to be in life. Either an actor, stuntman, photojournalist,
Okay.
or a Kentucky State Trooper. I wanted to be a Kentucky
That
State.
hat.
That hat. I wanted to be a Kentucky State Trooper so bad.
That hat.
Kentucky State, because out of all the law enforcement in Kentucky,
Right.
it was the Kentucky State Police that had the prestige.
Right.
And so I wanted to be a Kentucky State Trooper. And within the context of that, I had this desire to arrest the people who were really doing certain things that other people got blamed for. And so I wanted to be a Kentucky State Trooper, and had made it. A Kentucky State Senator called me and said, you're going to be a Kentucky State Senator, Trooper. And I'm like, cool. And so I was working for my adopted father's car dealership, and I had taken a car to the service station to put some gas in it that we had just sold. And a Graves County sheriff drove up, and he's looking at me, and he said, and I should have known something then. He looked at me and said, we heard that you're going to be a Kentucky State Trooper. And I said, yeah. And he looked at me with this little smirk on his face. Well, sometimes things don't work out the way they are supposed to.
Say what?
And so I didn't really pay no attention to him, because I'm like, Senator done called me and told me. A week after that, I get a letter from Kentucky State Police said, we're sorry, you didn't make it. And I knew then that the good old boy club did what they do, and the guy's words came back to me. Yeah, couldn't go fight them, couldn't do this. It was devastating.
Yeah.
And my grandmother had moved to town years earlier and left the farm for me. I'd go out on the farm and walk up and down the railroad track, which is another story. And that particular evening, some days after that, I went out there and I was walking up and down the railroad track, and right in the middle of the railroad track, Ron, I grew up on an old dusty road.
Okay.
One lane highway. One lane, old dusty road, half mile off the main highway, okay? When the sun went down, it was black, okay? You could see every star in the universe.
Yes.
And so I walked up on the railroad track, and for years I'd gone up and down the railroad track daydreaming about making it to Hollywood and how I was going to make it to Hollywood and what I was going to do and talking to the Lord about it. But this particular day I was walking up and down the railroad track, and I got to the railroad crossing, and I stood there and I looked around. And I'm like, I need to pray, because I ain't going to make it here. I ain't going to make it in this town. I got down on my knees in the middle of the railroad track on a fall evening, and I prayed to God to get me out of Mayfield, Kentucky. Like, God, I ain't going to make it. You got to do something. Yeah. And when I stood up, I looked in the direction of Atlanta, Georgia, because I knew some people that moved to Atlanta, and I knew they was trying to make it a place for people of color to go and get opportunities. And I said, and this vision of Florida came in my mind. People, don't tell God what to do, okay? This vision of Florida came in my mind, and I was arrogant enough to stand up and say, oh no, God, not Florida. I don't know nobody in Florida. Atlanta, God, that's where. Ron?
And what did God say?
3 weeks later, I was living and working in Florida.
Thank you. People have this expression, they say, God is good. You know what I say? Chicken is good. God is great.
God is great. 3 weeks later,
Amen.
I was living and working in Florida, and the rest is history, as you say. But I came from these, like they say, these humble beginnings.
Right. Because you went to college at what school?
I went to college at Murray State University for a year.
Got a degree in what?
I didn't get a degree. I left college after a year. And here's what's so interesting. I made friends, great friends at Murray State University, that we stay in touch and we talk all the time. And they'll call me and say, Haywood, yes? If you wanted to be a photographer and you wanted to be an actor, why didn't you take those courses at Murray State? And I'm like, for the last 40 years, I've been trying to figure that one out myself.
These things happen.
But,
That's life.
But when you look at it, you begin to see, as Garth Brooks said in a country song, God knows what he's doing after all.
Come on.
And everything that takes place, if you pay close attention, and this is what I have found and what I like to share with people, some of the most devastating things that have taken place in my life, or that will take place in our lives, if you pay close attention, it will send you in another direction that in time becomes a better direction to go in. And I know it's painful.
Yeah.
Kids losing their parents, losing your business, and you're devastated, and you don't know which way you're going to go. And years later, if you pay close attention, if you don't give up, if you don't start hating God, and you don't give up, years later down the road when you're sitting in a mansion and everything's great, if you stop and think, you go like, if that hadn't happened that way, I wouldn't be where I am today doing as good as I'm doing.
Amen. Amen.
And I tell that to people, and I want to express that here today. Folks, just look, just pay attention. Time takes care of all things, and God is time.
Right. Okay. When you got into Florida, in that market down there as a black, how was it with the opportunity to get a job?
Well, when I went to Florida, I went as doing construction.
Okay.
But my desire was to get into the business because I had heard that they was going to turn Florida into the next Hollywood.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, I'll go in and get on the ground floor. And actually, people tried to keep me on the ground floor. But the opportunity came in 1984 to go to work for WSVN 7, a television station, as a sound tech for a year. It was a one-year training program. And so I went to work. And for the first 5 months, I wanted to quit every day. I remember one day going into the bureau manager in Broward County, because the main station was in Miami, but they had a bureau in Broward County, and I worked at that. And I went and I said, I want to quit because the guy I'm working for, he's just so hard, he won't give me a break. And the boss sleepishly looked at me and said, give it about another month. I'm like, okay. So time went on, and all of a sudden it hit, bam. And the guy in me who wasn't getting along, because in my arrogance, I thought I knew what I was doing. I didn't know, and I had to learn. In about 6 months, I learned what to do. And we became the team, the go-to team.
Okay.
They would go to us for everything. It was 3 crews, but we were the go. It was 2 crews in the daytime and 1 at night. We were the go-to team in the day. If it was something major, we were going to do it. We played these little games with all the other news crews that were out there. We were always acting like we were fighting each other mad. Wow. And so we wasn't. So the other crews figured they're not going to be able to do it. But when it was time to hit, it was a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. We flipped on them so fast.
Excellent.
And we became the crew to go to. Like I said, if anything happened, something out of town, they'd call us to go out of town. Something in town major, they'd call us in town. So about 2 months after that, I went back to the boss. I said, I think it's going to be all right. And he sleepishly looked at me again. You sure you don't want to quit? I'm like, no, I don't think so. And then I started, and what I did was, I wanted to be a still photographer. So I had a camera, and I carried it with me on assignments.
Okay.
Every day.
Okay.
And we was covering some major stuff, and I would shoot pictures. And sometimes we'd be on Spot News, and Spot News is breaking news of bad accidents, shootings, or whatever. And I'd take pictures, and I'd call the newspapers, and nobody ever wanted my pictures. They're like, we got our own photographers, that's okay. So then one day, they did the famous perp walk of the only lady at the time to have made, this was 1984, to have made the FBI's 10 most wanted list. This little old petite lady, she about this tall, about this big. Her and her 2 sons down in Dade, Broward County, had a major marijuana ring going. I mean, it was deep.
I read about that. Yes.
It was so interesting. Yes. So they walked her into federal court, and so a photographer had came up from the Miami bureau that was teaching another guy to do video. He was trying to move in the program from being a sound tech to being a videographer, and I was still doing sound. So I had my little camera. I was trying to shoot, and the guy said, "Give me the tape recorder." So I took the tape recorder off. He said, "You shoot. Go ahead and shoot your pictures." So I shot my pictures, and when we got back to the bureau, there was no still photographers from none of the newspapers there, the Miami Herald, the Fort Lauderdale News, Sun Sentinel, none of them were there. So I said, this might be an opportunity. So I called him. I said, I got these pictures of the woman on the 10 most wanted list. And the guy said, hold on a minute. Then he came back to the phone and said, bring it in. We'll take a look at it. I brought it in. They took a look at it. They used it. The Miami Herald used it. And then I called UPI in Miami. I had to drive down to Miami. They wanted it. So my first picture went all over the world. And from that point on, when I would call them,
they knew you.
They didn't say, what you want with us today? They say, what you got, Haywood?
Right. That's how you do it.
And I started building up my career. And one of the photographers, there was a couple of photographers, one at the Miami Herald, in Broward, one at the Fort Lauderdale Sun Sentinel. They saw my desire, and I remember I'd be out there talking.
Yeah.
I'm great. And this guy walked in my show who worked for Miami Herald. He said, come here, Haywood. I said, no, you're not great. Your camera don't even have a motor drive on it. So, and then he said this. If you want to become a good photojournalist, when you get off at the TV station in the afternoon, come to the paper. I'm going to show you how to be a good photojournalist.
Okay, all right.
So when I would get off in the afternoon, I'd go to the Miami Herald in the dark room and watch him do what he did. And he gave me tips about shooting. Now, I was on a real tight budget. I had one roll of film in the camera that would last a couple of weeks, taking 4 or 5 shots because I couldn't afford the film. It got to the point where when we was leaving the paper at night after he got through, he'd walk out to the trunk of his car, he'd pop the trunk open, and he had boxes of Triacs, which cost like at that time in 1984. $500 a box, okay? And I stand there and look at it like, whoa. And he started just reaching into the box. Said, open your fanny pack.
And load you up.
Load me up. Now go out and shoot. And they did something else. I never will forget this. I'll remember for the rest of my days. And that's why I like to, besides promising God that if He'd let me live my dreams, I'd reach back and pull people forward. We would be out, and there would be some spot news taking place, and I'd be out there. And one of those guys would come up, and they would always say, Haywood, now you know if, I thought I cut that off. You know if we go back to the paper
Right.
that they're not going to use your stuff. They're going to use our stuff. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to wait. When we get back, we're going to wait and we're going to go to the managers and say, look, we got there, it was over with.
Wow.
It was over with, we didn't get the shot. But guess who was there?
You?
Haywood was there,
Right.
and we told him to come in as soon as he could.
Okay.
And that's what the guys started doing for me.
What?
They would pass up the opportunity to have their pictures in the paper so that I could get my pictures in the paper and make a name for myself.
That's how you do it. Now, while this is all going on, you had a chance there in Miami to work to do a job. You did your first movie as a stunt person.
As a stunt person.
And then you got a job where on Miami Vice, was it?
That little television show
Yes. Tell us about that place.
that changed on location shooting.
Yes, yes, yes.
I had an opportunity. I had an agent, and they had the squad room scene.
Okay.
And you had the players in the squad room, and we were called the OCBers. So I went to work on the set. The first season, Don and Philip, they were very nice. They'd eat with the crew and everything.
Yep.
And so
That's what I heard.
then the second season came, and I had an opportunity to talk to Philip and tell him that I was a photographer, and I think it was James Brown had came to do the show. And so I like, Philip, can I go up to? Philip had a studio in North Miami, in theater, and I said, Philip, can I go with y'all to take some pictures of James Brown and y'all up in state? He said, yeah, come on. So I went up to the studio, took pictures, took them to UPI. UPI sent them out, and they were in several magazines. One of them was Jet. So I came to the set, and Philip called me in his trailer. He said, hey, you want to be my photographer? I saw your picture. I said, yeah, Phil, I'll be your photographer. So he made me his photographer. I went back and forth with him. About 3 months later, he said, hey, would you want to be my bodyguard?
All right.
Now, his brother was his full-time bodyguard,
Right.
but he made me his part-time bodyguard and said, we do a little traveling. So I said, yeah. And so I started being his bodyguard and his personal photographer. And he was the first person to bring me to L.A. And I never will forget it. We came out the first time for a kickoff weekend for the fall television season. And we stayed at Century City in the penthouse suite.
Okay. High living.
High living. And I never will forget it. Two things happened on that trip that I never will forget. First of all, when we would fly, I sat on the aisle seat so that nobody could bother Philip. We are like 75 miles out of LA. The pilot, says we're about to put on your seatbelts. We're getting ready to descend into the Los Angeles area.
Right.
And Philip is sitting by the window and he says, stand up. I'm like, why? Why you want me to stand up? He says, stand up. I'm like, okay, I stand up. He says, change places with me. I'm like, Philip, I cannot be by the window seat and protect you. He said, I don't care. Change places with me. So I changed places with him. I got in the window seat and we sat back down. I'm like, what's going on, Phil? He said, I want you to see what it looks like
Oh, the city.
to fly into Los
LA.
Angeles.
Oh, yeah. It's a good feeling. It's a very good feeling.
So I'm looking, we fly into Los Angeles, so we get here. And I usually drive everywhere we go. So I go to get the keys from the rental car. He snatches the keys. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, you're going to ride this weekend, and I'm going to drive.
All right.
I'm going to show you LA. So then we go to Century City. We stay at the hotel. Like I said, the penthouse suite and everything is going on. And I never will forget, Ron. I walked out onto the balcony of the penthouse suite, and I was looking over at the Avenue of the Stars and everything. And I said, I ain't got but one place to go from here, and that's down.
That's right, because you're all the way at the top.
I'm all the way at the top.
Great place to be at.
I
love
ain't
that
got but
hotel.
one place to go
Yes.
from here. So we do that, and then we had one more trip. We had several trips, but this one trip I remember in particular. We came out for a weekend to do something, and he said, okay, this weekend I'm going to take you around to all the studios because you're going to be working at the studios.
Got you.
So he took me to the studio, and we was in Burbank, and I never will forget it. We were getting ready to leave Burbank. We was on Barham Avenue.
Yes.
We were at the back, where the back gate is at Warner Brothers. And I'm sitting over there, and I'm not paying attention. I'm just sitting there. Phil looked at me and said, what's wrong with you? I said, what you mean? He said, you got this look on your face. I said, well, you know, Phil, we're in LA. This is where I always wanted to be, but now we got to leave. And he said this. He said, well, you got two options. You can stay here now, or you can go back to Miami and get ready to come back to live here. And I looked at him and said, Phil, I make money, but I don't make that type of money to live in LA. A year later, I'm sitting at the light on Barham at the back gate of Warner Brothers.
Don't tell me. Don't tell me.
Headed into Burbank to go for an audition to see about a job or something. So I'm sitting up here at the light and I'm just looking around. And it hits. Wait a minute. Philip said I was going to be living in LA, right at this very spot. Tears came to my eyes because I was living in LA.
Right.
I'm like, wow. It was deep.
Yes.
As we say.
As we say.
It was deep.
We're going to take a break.
Okay.
This is the Actor's Choice. My guest today, Haywood Galbreath. The studio of Harvey Brandman Photography as an Art is proud to offer you a $100 discount off any photo package valued at $200 or more. Now, Harvey's been in the business for nearly a quarter of a century, and he certainly knows how to take care of his customers. So please, give him a call today at 818-954-9294. That's 818-954-9294. You'll be glad you did. And by the way, please tell Harvey that you heard his offer right here on the Actor's Choice. 5150, the book. It's the latest release from author and attorney Ron Irwin. As a young Marine, Irwin spent 13 months in Chile, Republic of Vietnam. His experience, where nearly 3 million Americans went to war, was, as he puts it, 5150. The book is currently available in paperback at lulu.com. That's lulu.com. And Irwin says he'll give 20% of the net book sales split evenly between the veterans of foreign wars and Vietnam veterans of America. Book to the Future, Time Travel, Message in a Catalog, Capsule, is a new book by author Larry Buford. It's a historical and faith-based account of how what we do and follow today will affect us tomorrow. And the author also calls it an adventure for those who want to travel back through time. The book is now available in paperback for only $17.95 from Amazon. Please get yourself a copy today. And now a word from State Farm agent Carla Green.
Let me ask you something. What do you see when you look at your home and your car? Do you see a bundle? A combo deal? That's how other insurance companies see them. But a State Farm agent sees so much more. Because the State Farm agent sees your home and your car as more than just 4 walls and 4 wheels. They see the things you've worked really hard for. So why not give them the protection they deserve? Let me help you with that. Give me a call. State Farm agent Carla Green, 213-239-9675. I look forward to speaking with you.
Thanks, Carla. And like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. For more information, 213-239-9675. That's 213-239-9675. In case you haven't heard it yet, ladies and gentlemen, in the spirit of the coming new year, the U.S. Postal Service has announced several of the new Forever stamps. They include Marvin Gaye, the Prince of Motown, one of the most influential music performers of his generation. Also receiving a new stamp will be singer-dancer Gregory Hines, whose unique style of tap dancing injected new artistry into the American form. Marvin Gaye and Gregory Hines, congratulations to the both of you. The stamps will be available in 2019. And speaking of Motown, the Temptations were one of the top groups on the label. Louis Price was the former lead singer for the group, and on Saturday, December 15th at 8 p.m., join Price for an evening of fun music with tasty original and special guests. Come on down to the Ann and Jerry Moss Theater, located at 3131 Olympic Boulevard, Santa Monica, 90404. That's 3131 Olympic Boulevard, Santa Monica, 90404. Tickets are available at itsmyseat.com/Louis Price, or just call 818-539-0997. That's 818-539-0997. That's Saturday, December 15th at 8 p.m., the Louis Price Experience. I'll see you there. And finally, if you have a product or a service or upcoming event that you'd like to see advertised on this program, please call 323-533-1036. That's 323-533-1036. Our prices are very affordable. Thank you. This is the Actor's Choice. I'm your host, Ron Brewington. Our guest today, Haywood Galbreath. Okay. Before we went to break, you were talking about getting to know L.A., what it was all like. And then as an advocate of knowledge, and you dedicated your life to teaching young people. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Why?
You know, going back to, as I was talking about, where I was born and raised.
Yes.
There wasn't many opportunities for young African Americans. And there's still, from what I understand, not a lot of opportunities. But also, as I said, I made a promise to God on that railroad track that if he would take me away from there and let me live my dreams, I would reach back and try to pull people forward. And so that's the promise I made. That I always say that's my covenant I made with him, and that's a covenant I had to keep. And in the past several years, I started an organization called Minority Photojournalism Institute to teach young kids of color or anybody else who was underprivileged photography. And I have been working with an organization called the Pacific Links chapter of Links in Inglewood, and they started a program at Inglewood High School to mentor young black kids in photography. At first it was young ladies and young men together, and then one day the teacher saw that the young men paid attention to me. So they decided to make it young men only. And so for the past several years, I'm not doing it this fall, I'll be back in the spring. I worked with young men teaching them photography. And the interesting thing was, you know how it is with our young men. They don't have many choices, and they're looked at a certain way, most especially in areas like Inglewood and South Central. And these young men, you know, what I tell people, they had to fight on the way to school, they had to fight at school, they had to fight at home, they had to try to look a certain way and be a certain way to make it, and sometimes they had to fight at home. And so when they get in this program, and one of the things I've done is I take them out of the hood. I take them to Griffith Park, I take them to the Botanical Gardens, I take them to the zoo, I take them to the marina. And what I didn't know is a lot of those young men have never been further than 10 miles from their home.
That's right.
But it's like magic. When we take them out of that area, the tightness that you see, the on-guardness that you see while we're in school having class, it disappears. And they get to be young boys. They get into it, and they get into the photography, and they get into competition with each other. Like, I did this, and they'll turn around sometime, Mr. Haywood, was my shot better? I'm like, I'm not saying nothing. But you know, and take them to, and one of the things, take them to the Botanical Garden, and you know the Botanical Garden is a bunch of flowers. I just wanted to see what their attitudes would be taken to a bunch of flowers. They get in botanical garden. They get off on trying to capture those images. And for several years, they won awards. And I got early this year, I got a phone call from the teacher that said, Haywood, several of the guys that graduated, they started their own photography businesses.
Beautiful, beautiful. I have an expression as a teacher that it's called the 3 E's: education, exposure, and experience. And that's what we have to give our young kids today. Get that formal education. Go out there. Take this off. Been wearing that blinder for too long. Take that off. Go out there and see that world. It's a big world out there.
It's a big world out there. And I tell them that. I took them one time. We went up to Griffith Park. They had on their new tennis shoes because we were standing. And I said, "You see that mountain up there?" They're like, "Yeah." I said, "That's where we're going." And all of them almost in unison, "No, we're not. Got on my new tennis shoes. I ain't going." And I looked at the teacher. I said, "Let's go." And we started walking. We started singing, "We're off to see the wizard, wonderful Wizard of Oz." So, try to make a long story short, they're fussing all the way up to the top.
Yeah.
All the way up to the top. They're fussing. They're behind me. I'm walking like 50 yards ahead. They're just steady fussing. Why we got to go up here? Why are we doing this? But they're coming. Because I knew that we was going to reach a certain part. It was getting dark. And there are trees up past the observatory. So they couldn't see the observatory no more. They couldn't see the city. But I figured once they finally saw it, it was going to blow them away. So we kept going. We kept going. And I was looking out of my peripheral vision. So when I was finally able to see the city, they're back there fussing. I said, "Fellas, stop." I said, "Look to your left, and what do you see?" All of a sudden, all I hear is, "Ooh, ah." I said, "Come on, let's go." We went another 50 yards and set up. And I said, "Now, was it worth the journey?" "Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it was." And then I told them this, and I always try to tell them, I said, everything out there in the Los Angeles basin belongs to you. You had people that came before you that worked real hard to get it, to make it possible for it to be yours. But you got to work yourself to get it. Right. But it's your right to have it. Right. You got to work. That's what you got to do. Right. Keep your nose clean, work hard, and if you keep your nose clean, even if somebody does you wrong, there'll be people there to defend you and get you out of that trouble. Right. So they took some great images. Like I said, they've won different awards. The program has won awards, and then at the end of the year, we have a little photo exhibit. So I blow up their photos, and they come in, and they'll pick up an 11 by 14 and look at it and be standing like this.
Yeah, you did
and
that.
they'll look at me.
Yeah, you did that.
Yes, you did that. It's awesome. Before we go any further, I got to say something. When I came here 29 years ago, I met a young man. Mm-hmm. And he had this thing, he would give you a souvenir. You remember this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, $7. Yeah. I do that all the time. Yeah.
Who you know who gave me this?
Yeah, it was me. I call it STD, something to do. Something to do.
I bet you didn't think I kept this, did you?
I'll be damned, I didn't. I'm telling you, because I got another one for you today.
I have kept this
wow.
for 29 years. It's in a lock box.
Oh, pass the tissue. You got any tissue around here?
It's in a lock box. And I look at it every once in a while, and I remember Ron gave this to me when I first met him.
A lot of people.
I just wanted you to know I kept the $7.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, can we go on? Okay. And then in mid-1994, just fast forward, former NFL player, broadcaster, and actor Orenthal James Simpson, known as O.J., was tried on 2 counts of murder for the June 12th deaths of his ex-wife Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman. So what happened to you?
What happened to me was, I had started advocating. Like I said, when I first came here 29 years ago, the black press wasn't given opportunities to cover major events.
Right.
There was always some excuse of why they couldn't participate, and photographers wasn't given an opportunity to go out and shoot. So I went to work for the Los Angeles Sentinel, and when I got there, I started looking around. I'm like, wait a minute, why can't we go cover events like everybody else? We're legitimate, we're a newspaper. So I started advocating for the black press to have access to cover events. I had to go as far as calling Congress people to write letters to the NFL and to different people. It was so interesting. You know, we covered, well, my first year here, they said, well, you haven't covered us enough, so you can't come to the playoffs.
Excuses.
I'm like, okay,
Always excuses.
all right. So the next year, I'd make sure I'd go to every game. Came time for the playoffs and stuff. Well, we don't have no space for it. What you mean you don't have no space for us? So I'm like, okay. So I got in touch with Congresswoman Maxine Waters and Julian Dixon and some others and some judges and stuff. Like, they won't let us in. So they wrote letters and they started opening up the door. And I got into it with a lot of people in Hollywood that still don't speak to me because they would deny us the right. And the thing was, this would be events involving people of color. And you were told you couldn't come and cover people of color. If you wanted the pictures, you had to go to a mainstream organization. And some of these organizations would have 3 and 4 photographers, but you're saying you don't have no space for us. And I would tell them straight up, well, if you took out some of these photographers, you would have more room.
Yeah.
And my thing was never eliminate anybody, but make the playing field level so everybody can participate. So we fight and we fought. So the O.J. Simpson matter came up, and I went and talked to the news organizations. They called a meeting about who would cover it. And so we went down to Associated Press, and all of them got together. So there's like the big 5, that when something major takes place on each day of the week, one of those organizations is the photo pool. And so I was talking to them about how we could participate, and they kept coming up with all these excuses of how we couldn't do it. And in the middle of the meeting, I said, you know what? Everything that I've come up with, you said you couldn't do it, but everything I've come up with is something that y'all have done to work with each other. But you're saying you can't do it that way. So I finally got very angry. I stood up and I looked at them. And I didn't mean it maliciously. It was from the heart, seriously. I said, you know what? Old white men ain't gonna run this show completely no more. When I turned around, they said, no, Haywood, don't leave, don't leave. I said, no. I said, because nothing I say is gonna make y'all do right by us. And the judge had sent a representative from the court to the meeting. So I left, I walked down, I said, well, I may have said a little bit too much, but hey.
Got off your chest.
I ain't gonna lose.
Right. Not to lose.
And the next day I get a phone call from the owner of the Sentinel, and he said, Judge Ito just sent word that he is going to give the black press a position in the courtroom.
All right.
To shoot. And it was the first time in history that a black-owned news photo service had gone in and was sitting beside mainstream media shooting. And here's something else that happened that I didn't realize. And I learned these things years later, certain things. It was on the condition that I never missed a day.
Oh, please.
I didn't know that until 3 years ago. I was doing an interview with
You're a
a
human
court
being,
person.
right? Human beings get sick every now and then.
He said, but you can't miss a day.
Wow.
I didn't know it, but I wasn't planning on missing a day anyway because it was too important. It was going to set a precedent, and I wanted this precedent set. And so, but here's what happened. I wind up being the only photographer in the world, and I always like to rub it in a little bit, in the universe that was in the O.J. Simpson trial every day. Now, there were 3 photographers every day, but they were from different news organizations each day. I am the only person that has a complete record of that trial in still photos, and it's like 18,000 pictures. Shot 18,000 negatives. I shot a photo that the LA Times, when they saw it, stopped running their paper, took the picture they had on the front page off, and put that picture on the front page. The prosecution, when they saw the picture, they cut it out of the paper and used it as evidence the next morning. I was the only person that the defense let me come when they was preparing for their case and take pictures of them working on it. I'm the only person with a photo of the whole defense team together, the dream team. I'm the only person that Judge Ito let come back to his courtroom to take pictures of his staff when the trial was over. I'm the only person O.J. Simpson let come to his house and take pictures of his family and kids after he got home. You know, there was a big thing about his kids. I went to his house and took pictures. When I walked out of his house with those pictures, I could have called a magazine and got $250,000.
That's right.
But I'm loyal to the people that are loyal to me, because that's loyalty is very important, and that's why I get to get certain shots, because I told him I wouldn't do it. I had it. I was there. When he got ready to leave, he let me come to the house and take pictures of him leaving. I was the only person that. Photographer, journalist that Johnny let come to the party that he had for his birthday after the trial was over, that had jurors and others. Judge Ito, and this is one of the most interesting things. They always talk about, you hear journalists talking about how Judge Ito lost control of the trial. And then in their next breath, they brag that they got to go to Judge Ito's chambers and talk to Judge Ito. It's a big, it's a big thing in their career.
Oh yeah, Lance Ito, yes.
Yes, but they had to go with the court liaison. I went to Judge Ito's chambers about 8 times during the trial. Sometimes I would ask to go see him. Wasn't no court liaison. I just marched right into Judge Ito's office. His bailiff just sitting there, yeah, Haywood, go ahead. Sometimes I come in the courtroom, Judge Ito's clerk would say, Haywood, Judge wants to see you. I just march right back there and talk.
In case you didn't know, you have a certain style about you that people just love you when they meet you. I don't know what it is.
Some people do.
A lot of us do. We've always thought very highly of you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, very.
So I just would march in there.
Gotcha.
I'd be on the elevators with lawyers. That time I was wearing a hanging earring. They like,
that's right, you did, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
They would look at me and go like, that looks
that?
cool, but I don't think the judge would appreciate me wearing it in courtroom.
Yeah.
But and like I said, it wasn't malicious that I said and did what I did.
Right.
I was just fighting for the right for my people to have their rights.
Right.
And I continue to fight for the right of my people. I don't want to kick nobody out.
Right.
But let us have our part of this. If one thing I've always said about my career is, if I'm out there shooting and you're out there shooting, and they decide to use your pictures over my pictures, I can't say anything.
Right.
But if I'm not given a chance to be out there, and they're using your pictures because they're the only ones,
Right.
then I have a right to complain. And so that's all it is with me.
Right.
You have a right to participate, and that's the fight I fought. And I've done something that it never will be done again in our lifetimes. Media has changed so much, there never will be one photographer
Right.
that's in something like that.
Okay. We got just a few more minutes left. I just want to understand that you also have won a few awards.
I've won some awards for photography. One of the awards I'm most proud of was in 2013, the Ford Motor Company gave me an Unsung Hero Award for teaching young kids photography. And I'm very proud of that award.
Okay.
And through the years, I've won some more awards for portrait and spot news photography and stuff, and I'm very proud of that.
What's that book that you brought with you, sir?
This book is the first in a series of books called Through the Lens, History and Moments Captured.
Okay.
I've had the privilege in my career, as you can see on the cover, there's President Barack Obama, Serena Williams, President Bush, Prince. I've had the privilege in my career of being around and with some of the most iconic figures of our time. I've been with 5 presidents, photographer for a day with 3 of them, President Reagan, President Clinton, President Obama. I've been with a lot of governors, a lot of very famous pictures. In this book, there are 6 people in this book who just passed away this year that were iconic figures. Billy Graham, Barbara Bush, who just recently passed away, Aretha Franklin, a national figure to us, John Mack.
Yeah. So you do all those original photos that you've done.
Original photos,
Right.
you've got to see them.
How do I get that book?
It's on Amazon. If you Google him a name on Amazon, Haywood Galbreath, it'll come up. But I got a website called Through the Lens, HAMC,
Okay.
and that's short for History and Moments Captured. Through the Lens, HAMC.org. If you go up there, it's a little bit cheaper than it is on Amazon. But it's an awesome book. There's a lot of information also, and if anybody would like for me to come and talk to them and show some pictures, my agent, Miss Sydney Chandler, is listed up there.
Yes.
She's listed up there where you can contact her, or you want me to do things. Like I said, I was an actor.
Want to be an actor again?
Want to be an actor again. If you think you might want me, what I tell people is I can't play the young debonair guy anymore,
Why
but
not?
I can play that older, mature
We got a little gray head there.
debonair guy, that little streak off in there. I can play that part.
Okay.
Hopefully real good and everything. So, yeah.
We got to go, unfortunately, but
gotta
I
go.
wish you'd come back again. You got so much more to talk about. Okay.
Man, as I tell people, I got 1,000,000 stories and 1,000,000 country songs to go with the stories.
All right. All right.
So if you want to have me back sometime, call me, man. I got some stories for you.
We'll bring you back for sure.
All right.
Special thanks to our sponsors, Harvey Brandman, Photography is an Art, Ron Irwin's 5150 The Book, Larry Buford's Book to the Future, Time Travel, Message in a Capsule, and State Farm agent Carla Green. Want to thank our guest today, actor, photographer, Haywood Galbreath. Hope to come back again.
Thank you.
And best wish to you. Hope that 29 is a good year for you. You got a calendar coming out, understand?
I got a calendar.
Can you put that picture up for us real quick? There it is. There it is. There's the calendar.
There it is. Oh, look, got the picture of the calendar.
Oh, yeah, we don't waste no time around here. We don't
Y'all-
play.
y'all got it going on.
Just call me homie. Homie don't play.
Homie
Okay.
don't play. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, and thank all our viewers, and we love you dearly. And hey, go out there and buy that Marvin Gaye stamp. We worked hard for that, 15 years. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.